Hi there. I've been asked about derailleurs a few times, and I thought, well, do a little short video about it because there seems to be some sort of mystery about them. Let's start with the name, derailleur, and that's all it is. All it does is shunts the chain backwards and forwards up the cam. That's all it does, derails the chain onto each gear. This one is a 10-speed derailleur, but all derailleurs are the same. They just look different, but they do exactly the same job. They may have a little bit of a different adjustment. This one adjusts up on the frame. I'll show you later on that. But a lot of the derailleurs adjust where the actual cable goes in. There's like an adjuster, it's usually at the back. Okay, these are called Jockey Rules. Okay, they hold the chain in place and they keep it in tension. There's a spring in there and it keeps the whole thing under tension. Okay, there's a spring in there. But the first thing, if your derailleur is mucking up, the first thing to do is clean it. Don't be worried to wash it down and then lubricate it, making sure that there's no grit in any of the bits that go up and down, and give it a damn good clean out, because that's usually what your problem is. As a rule, there are 3 adjusting nuts on a derailleur. One of them is to create this gap here, and that is very simple. You can look at that one, it's usually the same on all of them. That's about the same gap you get on all of them, and you can hear it, in fact, if it's too close, and if it's too far away then you can feel it. But basically one nut does that adjustment. It butts up against a stop in here. I'll show you that in close up later. The other 2 screws on here are stop screws. Basically, it stops it, when you adjust them, it stops the chain coming off the cam itself, right? It just keeps it from going off. And the same on the bottom, it keeps the chain from coming off completely that way. So once again, them 2 nuts on the outside there are to stop the chain coming off that way, and on the other nut, this bottom, stops it coming off that way. They're just like 2 stop nuts. This one has very kindly got H and L on it. The high is usually the largest ring. Okay, that's the one you pedal like mad to get up hills. Okay. Your low is usually the fastest, which is the smallest cog, which gives you the speed. So going back to those 2 little nuts. On the high one, which is the biggest gear, if your chain is coming off that way, all you need to do is give it a slight adjustment. Don't go mad, just keep adjusting it until it stops. And then sometimes I give it just another little tweak. And the same with that. If it's coming off that way, then just keep adjusting the low one until it stops. It's as simple as that. Just tiny little movements. You don't want to keep screwing it in and out. They're never usually that far away from where they should be. Once that is set, that will usually stay for the rest of its life, really, unless something hits the derailleur or you bend the derailleur. The important thing about a derailleur, or the important part, is the wire. The wire, once it's adjusted, holds it on each gear. That's all that holds it in place. The whole thing is held by the actual wire. And the wire is held in place by the ratchet in the gear changer. There's like a series of ratchets, so when you click it, it lets it off or tightens it up. Basically, it's pulling the derailleur backwards and forwards like that. Okay, up and down the gears. How you adjust them is, on this model, the adjuster is here. That screws out to tension it and screws in to lessen it. And whenever you adjust these, you only want to give them the slightest bit of a turn, because that's usually the only reason they're out, is a tiny bit of turn. Don't go mad with it. Right, that screw I've got between my fingers, that's the one that you adjust to make the gap between the top and the bottom, where the chain comes off the gear into the jockey wheels. Simple as that. Usually they're either there or sometimes they're on the back of the derailleur, and also the adjusting nut for this wire is usually on the back. A lot of the Shimano's have them on the back, but it's exactly the same action as this one. It just happens that my adjuster's up there on the cable, but a lot of them stick out the back of the derailleur, and you only want to give it, usually there's like a little notch, you can feel it as you turn it round. Just give it one notch. If it's too much, take it back a little bit, or take it another notch. You know, just do it one or two at a time. But make sure the derailleur is clean, that's the main thing, and it's well lubricated and it's moving properly. What you find people do is they keep screwing these nuts in and unscrewing them out too much. So when you're going to do it, just screw it in a fifth to a quarter of a turn each time, just gently. And you'll see the derailleur move if you look down the line of the actual chain itself. You can see which way it's moving each time you do the actual adjusting nut. And of course, if you do muck it up, take it to a dealer. Simple as that. But have a go yourself, you'll be surprised, because once you start doing it and you get used to it, you'll find it's very simple. There's no mystery to it at all, there's no magic. It's just a matter of a finite adjustment, that's all. And once you get it in, once you've done it at once, that's it, you've done it. Okay, just one more time. The two nuts you've got are here, high and low, stop the chain from coming off of the gears, either that way or that way. That's all they do. They stop the derailleur moving out any further than it should to hold the chain into the right gear at the top and the bottom. It doesn't do anything else, okay? The most important thing is the wire. The wire holds the actual derailleur in place to stay on the chain, and that is usually adjusted by the back of the derailleur, or on my bike it's the little adjusters down the bottom. Again, you only have to move them very slightly if they're only a little bit out and you haven't bent the derailleur or anything, to keep them in and out. And then the other screw at the back is for the distance on there, but that's usually set in for life as a rule, now again, unless you damage the derailleur. But the main thing you end up adjusting is the cable. You know, that might go out a bit, but again, the most important thing is to keep them clean. And just one thing about lubricating a chain, keep the chain clean, not wet with oil. And then when you lubricate it, lubricate the centre of the chain, not the whole thing. Run it round once, then wipe it all off with a rag. That's all you need to do. So you got the main thing is the inside of the chain. That's what you're lubricating, the runners. So keep your chain as clean as possible and just lightly lubricate it and wipe it off. Simple as that. Front derailleur, even simpler. Exactly the same principle, no difference whatsoever, except you've only got 3 gears, or 2 gears as it may be. It's exactly the same principle. It derails the chain. Now you've got 2 screws, and you've got an adjuster. It all depends what trike or bike you've got to where the adjusters are. These adjusters are here for my gears, and you just screw them up. They're on again, exactly the same principle. All you need to do is, if it's coming off the gear, then just adjust this. Just keep adjusting it slightly till it stops, then give it another slight one to make sure it doesn't happen again. And the same on the small gear. If I can find it, just adjust that one there. Now if it's not, so I mean, once they're set, okay? Again, once they're set, they're there for life, as long as you don't damage the derailleur. Now again, the wire holds it on to the actual gear itself. Therefore, all you have to adjust is on the adjuster, but if you're not getting enough, it's not actually pushing it onto the gear or triggering it off, just undo it from here, and pull it a little bit tighter, just a tiny bit, 1/16 of an inch, do it back up again, or let it off 1/16 of an inch, back it off again, because you won't muck around with this, you won't alter this setting off these two nuts. All you're doing is altering where the actual wire is going to hold it onto the gear.